was a time where I was like, I may not live through this, but I go, man, if I can make it through this, I can make it through anything. And you have to go to that edge in order for you to grow. You can gain the momentum over time once you start pushing the limits. Now, this is a point where like, yeah, my back's sore, my feet are torn apart, on 60 hours of no sleep, 30 hours on my feet with the weight on my back. So I go to the hospital, they said, you're in kidney failure. If you don't stop, we don't know what could happen.
Expert UFC coach and trainer Phil Daru just completed 100 miles with a 50-pound backpack to raise money in support of U.S. veterans.
Now, pain is a feeling, right? And the problem is that when they go through pain, fear starts to creep in. Maybe I'm going to cause irreversible damage. Maybe I'm going to die out here. And people let fear stop them from starting.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers Interviews, and today I'm really excited to share this episode for you. This was an interview that we shot primarily for a documentary that's going to be coming out on the main channel, so keep your eyes peeled. But you guys know Phil Daru, you know about his mindset, you know about his mentality work. He's an unbelievable coach, and he did a crazy challenge, and we were recapping that for a documentary, working alongside one of our partners, Marek Health. And this is the conversation from that documentary. It's filled with absolute nuggets. We talk about faith, we talk about mentality, mindset, physicality, and then also looking after yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. All those kind of things laid down in an interview with Phil Daru. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who supports us on Spotify, where you can get early access, all of our Patreon members, and more importantly, on this project in particular, our family at Marek Health. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video, but they have transformed my health and they made this mission possible with Phil Daru. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode.
Talk us through that look where it all went wrong and what happened.
Well, the thing that I had that plagued me was the confidence, right? And I underestimated the task. So I didn't have an understanding of what it all entails. So I didn't assess appropriately. I didn't identify what could go wrong. And then when I executed 110% because that's my mindset. So the first day, the first hour, I went hot out the gate, sprinting, 5 miles an hour, with 70 pounds on my back, not thinking of all the other miles that needed to be done. I'm just thinking about, let me get a good push. Let me get good momentum going, which in all intents and purposes, it was the right mind frame from a confidence standpoint, but strategically it was wrong. So I get to the 10-mile mark, and let's just say our directory, where we were going, we didn't really have an understanding, right? Now we're going through winding roads, we're going through neighborhoods. It wasn't a direct shot. So as we're going through these winding roads, we're in Miami, it rained out recently. There was a huge puddle, and we're talking not a standard puddle. This was like a monsoon, right? It covered the entire walkway. So I had no choice but to go through it. And so as soon as I stepped in it, I saw there was ankle deep water. So my feet were already drenched, my shoes were gone, and I looked at my partner and I said, man, this is going to be a rough one, because I knew that now that my feet are wet, you're going to have some blisters. It's going to accumulate, softening up to the tissue. And then we have major issues going down. So by mile 12, I tried to fix the problem, and it didn't happen, right? So I tried to dry my feet off, change the socks, whatever have you, but I'm still going at the pace that I set, which is a faster pace. It's a run. So now I'm starting to accumulate tears in my feet. There's giant, like silver dollar size hot spots on the balls of my feet and on my heel. So then my skin started to break apart. So now it feels like you're kind of walking on broken glass, right? Which is fine. It's pain. It is what it is. But I just didn't want it to get infected. So as we're going through this time, now I reached about 24 miles. And at this point, every step was excruciating. So I was suffering, but I knew that I could still maintain it, but I was slowing down at this time. So in my mind, I had a time frame that I needed to finish. So now mentally, I'm behind. Physically, I'm beat up. And I become defeated because I didn't set out the right time frame. And so now I'm behind, and now I'm struggling. So mentally, I go, I may not be able to do it in the time. So at that point, I should have said, we're going to take our time with this. We're going to tend to the feet. We're going to make incremental steps towards the end goal and not rush it. But that wasn't what I did. I just kept pushing forward and trying to go as fast as I possibly can. So by the second day, it was, again, this was in July, so it was hot, humid, it's in Miami. We made it out of Miami and we reached the Delray Beach area. Now, this is a point where my back's sore, my feet are torn apart. I didn't sleep at all. So now I'm no sleep, roughly around 60 hours of no sleep, 30 hours on my feet with the weight on my back. Should have slept. I should have took my time, didn't. So now I'm dealing with fatigue, nervous system fatigue, muscular fatigue. I'm dealing with broken feet, basically, at the end of the day. And I have anxiety because I'm trying to get to the goal. I'm focusing on the result. So by the end of the second day, I was walking, I started at a 12-minute per mile pace, 11-minute per mile pace, to a 30-minute per mile pace. So now I'm just slowly dragging on. And I said, I'm going to get to 50 miles and let's go to the hospital so that they can tend to my feet so that there's no problems going forward, right? I didn't want them to get infected. I needed to have pure medical advice to see what was going on. That was another thing. We didn't have the right team. We didn't have all the tools necessary to get it done. So I go to the hospital and they're like, how long have you been rucking? How long have you been on your feet? How long have you not slept? Let's run some labs. So I'm sitting there and my wife calls me. Now, this is about 2:00 in the morning. And she says, how's it going? I said, well, I'm in the hospital. And she says, you better stop. I say, you have a family. You have to take care of yourself. You have clients. You have a business. You have a team. And at that point, I had a decision to make. They came back and I was like, let me see what they say. So they came back. They said, listen, your creatine kinase levels are through the roof. You're in kidney failure. If you don't stop, we don't know what could happen. So at that point, I had to make a strategical decision to basically call it quits. Know when I failed, learn, and then grow from it. Now, mind you, my feet were torn apart, which was okay, whatever, it is what it is, it's pain. But the accumulation of muscle breakdown can cause a cascade of issues that plagues me for years to come. And because I had other things that I had to tend to, me being a professional, being a coach, I couldn't put myself at risk to not help others. So I had to not think about myself at that point. I had to think about others. And so the love that I had for the people that I serve stopped me from pursuing this task in some way. And as I'm sitting in the hospital bed, I go, did I fail? And obviously I didn't get the goal that I wanted accomplished, but I learned. And I said to myself, while I was sitting there, I said, learn, evolve, and grow. The year passes and I start to identify and put the pieces together, connect the dots. And so when I started to formulate a plan, I said, okay, we're going to go slower. We're going to go lighter. We're going to have a bigger team. We're going to have the proper supplementation. We're going to have the proper recovery protocols. We're going to have medical on staff, and we're going to get this thing accomplished. And I'm not going to focus on the 100 miles. I'm not going to focus on the end results. I'm just going to focus on one step at a time, 1 mile at a time, 1 day at a time. And however long it takes me, we'll get it done. But I put something that I knew that was manageably hard, that I could pursue each and every day. But it took the ability to pursue the task each day. So the plan was to make sure that I had enough time to prepare for this thing. Last time, 2 weeks, basically. The longest ruck I did leading up to those miles was probably about 12 miles. So I overestimated my abilities and I underestimated the task. So now I gave myself 16 weeks to fully build up the endurance, build up the mental fortitude, build up the understanding, and build the team. And when I told my wife I was going to do it again, well, it was a problem. And in the beginning, she said, well, you said this last time. You said that you were going to do all these things, and look what happened. You went to the hospital. And she's just looking out for me because, again, it's my wife. But when I started to go down the line on how I was going to orientate the new plan of action and how I was going to do this systematically, she fell in love with it. She said, let's do it. So as soon as she was on board, then it was a full go. And as the 16 weeks hit, once that first week happened, we were ready to go.
Was there a moment, a decision that you wanted to rectify what happened? Like, did you always know that you was going to try and come back and do it again? Or did you think you wanted to set the record straight at a certain point?
That's a good question. When I initially got out of the hospital, I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this isn't for me. You know, I've played strength sports and power sports. I'm a power athlete, you know, more fast twitch. Maybe this ultra stuff isn't for me. Maybe this long distance endurance isn't for me. But then I started to conceptualize purpose. And then I started to realize how well I could suffer through situations that allowed me to endure pain. Now, pain obviously is a feeling, right? And it's an uncomfortable feeling. But once you can identify that you're not going to cause significant harm long term, you gain confidence and you can bask in the pain, because the pain is just, it's temporary. And as long as you can identify it being a temporary pain, you can keep moving. The problem is that when they go through pain, fear starts to creep in, because now it's the fear of, maybe I'm going to cause irreversible damage. Maybe I'm going to die out here. And so when I could find out that I wasn't going to cause significant harm because of the strategy that I put together, because of all the pieces that I put in place, because all the people that I put on the team that allowed me to stay safe, then all it was just one foot in front of the other. So that's when I made the change in my mind frame. One, I need to play chess, not checkers. I need to think 6 steps ahead. I need to be a general. I need to look at the overarching problem that happened. I was way too confident. I was way too arrogant. I rushed the process, and I didn't give myself enough time to prepare. So when you take care of all of that, you become more equipped to get the goal accomplished. So that goes with everything. And I should have thought about that the first time, but again, you have to go through some type of failure, some type of pain, some type of, I would say, for lack of a better term, the most suffering that you can go through in order for you to identify what you're truly here for. And it was uncomfortable still, right? It wasn't a walk in the park, for lack of a better term. But when I started to feel that pain, I started to go deeper into prayer. And the one thing that I didn't have on my side was the divine. So I fell back into getting closer to God. And when the times got rough, when the times got solemn, and I felt like I was alone, I had to fall back to, I'm never alone, because I have Jesus Christ on my side. I have my team on my side. I have all those people that are depending on me on my side. And at times I had to really go into solitude and be by myself to really think about why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because it's not just about me at that point. It's about all those people that I can inspire, that I can motivate to just get up and do something. If I can do 100 miles, you can do 30 minutes on a treadmill just to stay active, to be healthy. So it was bigger than me at that point. So there's 3 main causes and 3 main whys that we wanted to conceptualize and understand. One was to help the military veterans through the acts. because I knew that I had the power to do so. The second thing was to inspire others based upon my past failures. So if you can lose forward, right, you can fail forward and lose in an optimal manner per se, and you can learn from that process, you can evolve. So it's about evolution, right? Because if you don't evolve, you die. And the last one was to glorify God, because I knew without him, I wouldn't be able to accomplish it. So those three major whys there. And when I passed 100 miles, it was all worth it.
Okay, so let's dive into a bit of the backstory, life story. So just tell us where you grew up. If you was to describe that to a global audience, like how would you describe that area, what it was like, and your childhood?
You know, what's funny is that I grew up in multiple areas in Broward County. So South Florida is vast, right? You got Miami, then you have Broward County, which is the Fort Lauderdale area. You know, I grew up in rough times, rough areas. There was some times where, you know, house got broken into, you know, you're trying to deal with all the demands of the neighborhood, but still trying to fit in some way, you know, and me being a white male in a predominantly black neighborhood, you know, I had to fight a lot. I had to overcome obstacles. And my mother was instrumental in my ability to have confidence in myself, right? The first time that I started training was with her. You know, she was getting ready for firefighter, like, I guess you would say, the test that she does while she goes into it. And I remember at like 4 years old running up a tower and pushing her to go up this tower, like, you know, yelling at her, you know, coaching her up. And I was like, I didn't know it at the time, but it set myself up for what I do now. And the one thing that I would always take from her was that never give up, right? Always stay pushing your limits, right? And doing it in the sense of getting better and adapting and growing in strength through all facets of strength. And I think that has instilled in me a work ethic that allows me to do what I do on a daily basis. So growing up in those times, again, like I said, I had to fend for myself. I had to prove to everyone that I was worth being there, right? And so when you go through these difficult situations, it kind of calluses you, and it teaches you how to respond to uncomfortable situations and suffering. And I live in that suffering to a degree where it allows me to conceptualize strength as a whole. And as I pursue an arduous task, I always go back to that state where if my mother could do it, then I can do it. And so I think that she was really a major driver for me. And I don't really think about that now, but bringing it up, it makes sense, you know.
Well, that mentality, this is what I want to get to the sort of the root of is, okay, so she's doing her training, you're a kid screaming at her to do, you know, to motivate her and get through it. And like you said, bringing through what you do today. What was there anything before that? Like I want to figure out, like, was you just born that way? Is that a temperament that you had, or do you feel like you sort of developed it seeing your mum struggle? Or
I think it's a mix of both. I think there was a God-given talent of mine to push past difficult situations. And when I look at talent, I look at purpose, it's intertwined, right? If God gives you the gifts and the tools necessary, you have to pursue that, because then you're not doing what you've been put here to do. And so when I look at it now, as I go through, let's say, a ruck, or I go through a fight or something of that nature, I always fall back to what is my purpose. And so when I decided to do this again, it was because it was my natural given ability to push past the arduous task. And so as virtues, I want to develop a level of fortitude. And you have to do that in order for you to be who you are, live in your being. And it takes a little bit of understanding. It takes a little bit of introspection. Your foundational identity is built off of your purpose. And when I look back at the times that I had to go through these situations, it molded me into the person that I am today.
As a kid, is there anything specifically that stands out that's like a moment where you feel like you developed that, or you'd had to, you know, you'd been through a certain situation or pushed through, like maybe it was the first time you had to fend for yourself or fight somebody or something like that? Was there anything that stands out to you looking back?
There's several moments. One moment in time, I would say I was probably in high school, where I was getting ready for my football season, my high school football season. And I wanted to be the best. I've always wanted to push myself to the limit and try to prove to myself and to others that I was worth it. And getting up 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on the day, and really identifying like, this hurts. This isn't comfortable. And I pushed away the comfortability of just everyday living, not like a typical high schooler. I was always the person that brought kids to the training room. I was always pushing people to actually evolve and grow. Because if I had a circle around me that was on the same level of thinking and that mind frame was connected, then we can all grow together. So improving on building a community of people that are willing to go that level, go to that next level where I want to go, and allow for all of us to exceed expectations. And that was one of the things, like starting out freshman year, there was a lot of trial and tribulation on, what I could do. I've had some injuries and things like that, but nothing really tore me down most than seeing my family not being able to provide. And my whole life, I've been trying to help my family. And this is where, like, getting into college and having to deal with situations in college and not being able to pay for certain things, it kind of took me to a direction where I thought that, this is where I need to be, and this is where I need to stamp my state of being, And so leaving college too as well, in pursuit to help my family. They didn't have any money coming in. There was nothing. I was, NCAA wouldn't allow us to get jobs at that time. So that decision was to leave my scholarship on the table, go back home and help my family. I think personally, we are all geared towards helping others. That's our natural God-given inclination, right? When you look at love, St. Thomas Aquinas says, love is to will the good of the other. And so if I have love for someone, I'm going to go the extra mile. I'm going to try to help as many people as I possibly can because I have love for those. And then again, I fall back to my purpose. I fall back to the will. And I have the will and the intellect because we're rational beings. So I can think of a task, I can think of a problem, and I need to solve it. And God gave me the will to go about it and do it. So you have powers, you have acts, you have states, right? You have the power to attack a situation. You have the power to achieve a certain task or goal. The act of that comes down to understanding the systems that you need to put together and strategies that you need to align to get the goal accomplished. Now, through that process, you become that type of person. In that process, you segment your state of being, who you are, what you stand for. I'm not someone that looks for, now at least, accreditation from other people. I'm looking to do the will of God. And so every aspect of my life is centered around that. So if I take a look back at it, it is about helping others in so many ways, but then finding the way to do it in the powers that have been instilled in me.
Yeah, and I don't suppose you'll describe a sob story, and you don't come across as the guy who would, but just for context though, like when you say, you saw your family struggle, what do you mean by that? Like, what does that look like?
There was, my mother developed lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. My father was in a wheelchair. He got in a bad car accident, so they couldn't work, and everybody has their stories. Everybody has their problems. So I don't want to harp on that. It was tough. It was hard. It was finding the way to solve the problem. And as a coach, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a leader, as a father and a husband, you have to solve a problem. As human beings, we solve problems every day. It's figuring out how you're going to solve the problem is a necessary approach. And so when I saw the problem that I had before, the first go around, I said I needed to fine tune what went wrong, figure out a new plan of action, and then execute accordingly, but stay focused on the task. Because a lot of times we get pushed in different directions. So then we start comparing, we start losing focus, and it takes us away from the actual journey. It takes us away from the mission. So I try to keep the main focus on the main thing at all times. And that goes back to figuring out, why am I doing what I'm doing? So going back to that, when I knew that there was no help being done back home, the only option I had was to go back and solve the problem. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But when I got there, I started to develop a plan, right? I'll go ahead and I'll start coaching people on the side. I'll start training people, sneaking them into Gold's Gym and trying to make something happen. So, intuitively, I knew that I'm good at this thing. This is a gift that God has given me. How can I implement that accordingly so that everyone else can benefit along with myself? Because now I'm living in purpose. So if I'm going to be happy, meaning I'm going to bring joy to my life, I'm going to enjoy what I do. I'm going to enjoy the process. I'm going to do meaningful work, right? And I'm going to be satisfied through that meaningful work. I can create happiness around me because the energy that I spill out is contagious. And so that was my main goal. Now, at the same time, I had a void that needed to be filled with competitiveness, right? I've been a competitor all my life. I've been a sport athlete all my life. So going and doing combat sports was something that I knew that it was me in there only. It was one-on-one, and I could only work with the team that I had. And then once the cage door closes, it was all on me. So I wanted to test myself to see exactly how much I had in the tank. Because when you can't call on other people, and most of the time you can't, you need to be able to solve the problem for yourself. So using that as somewhat of a practice and allowing me to identify my limiters. We talked about it earlier. What is the limiter? And when I work with individuals now, my main focus first and foremost is to assess and evaluate the system. The system meaning your body of work. So as I assessed the problem beforehand, I saw gaps in the sequence of events that happened, which ended up causing failure. But as long as you can learn from the failure, you will grow. So, as you develop a routine and you develop a skill set through constant action, and it's repeated, you gain the skills necessary to accomplish the task. But the problem is most people fall victim to not understanding what are the skills that they need to acquire based on the God-given talent that they have. So peeling back the layers on the root cause of the issue, along with what is it that you feel that you can accomplish and what is it that puts you here to do the things that you do. And I go back to the first cause, the Creator. He gives us the ability to live through your purpose. God created us in his image and likeness. And what that means is that we're rational beings. We have an intellect and we have a will. So we have an intellect to think, to solve, and then we have the will to go after it. It gives us the decisions and the choices that we need to make in order for us to get those goals accomplished so that we can live in our purpose. We want to do good for others because that's what we've been given. We've been given that intellect, that will to do good. Now, what is good? The ultimate good is God. He is good. When I look at love, it's the will to good of others. So then if I'm looking to love an individual or love a process, I have to be in search of the Creator because it'll put me in line with the effects that will happen if I pursue the right way.
You said your ability to endure is like is that gift that you've been given. I'm curious, is like when's the first time you sort of noticed that, or maybe you had to, maybe it was a tough training session, maybe it was a tough, like I'm talking physically, like one of those physical things, like was there something that stands out, you're like, hold on a second, I've got a gift here to be able to endure this and push through it.
I mean, when you're younger, you don't really conceptualize it. You just look back at it when you connect the dots getting older, now that I'm 37, and I start looking at all the times that I had to overcome and how people kind of dropped off and quit because when the times get rough, either you're going to excel or you're going to deflate. And so as I go through arduous tasks nowadays as an older male with a family, with all these other things that people are depending on me to do, I look back at all the times that I have been able to surpass, create change, and overcome the obstacles. So it gave me the confidence necessary to know that, okay, this is just another problem to solve. This is just another sacrifice that I have to be made. And I can do it because it gave me the confidence through conceptualizing the past. And we change according to what we go through, right? It gives us positive change or negative change. If you go through difficult situations, if you go through suffering in a lot of ways, it molds your character. I always wanted to make sure that no matter what happens in a situation, whether you could call it good or bad, depending on how you conceptualize it, that as long as I learn from the process, I will continue to grow. So I'll give you one example. So there was a fight that I had, and I think we talked about it last time, but it was a hard fight. I would say that I felt that I could have won. I felt like I could have triumphed over a certain situation, but while I was in it, I was just in it. I was in the fight. And there was a time where I was like, I may not live through this. And it was a hard fight. We're hitting each other. I'm a little fatigued. But I go, man, if I can make it through this, I can make it through anything physically, right? Because you literally feel like this is going to be it. And I always wanted to put myself back in that position because after I got done with it, I go, oh, I got another level to go through. And so you increase your levels based on the suffering. When you look at the gym, you're causing change through adaptability through a stimulus that pushes you past discomfort. And you have to go to that edge in order for you to grow. The body wants to go back to its natural state. It's called homeostasis. But when we get to a level to where your body says, listen, and your mind says, if you don't evolve, you're going to die. So then the mind and the body become stronger. You have order and you have strength, right? Now, order is the understanding of your priorities, right? Your actions and your responsibilities. Now, strength can be many things. Strength of the body, strength of the mind, strength of the spirit. If you can combine the two, you will have total dominion over your life through the will of God. So when I look at these situations, I have to tie them in. Now, here's the caveat to that. If you have strength without order, it becomes chaotic. So you could be strong, and I always tell my athletes, I don't care how strong you are, how much force you can produce, if you can't control it, it means nothing. With order, you need to have routine. You need to be able to have discipline. And you need to sacrifice some things in order for you to identify the issue. With strength, like I said, you can train the body. You can obviously train the mind through pushing it through arduous tasks. And you have to train the spirit, meaning that you have to spend time with the divine. When I can combine those two, I become unstoppable because I know that it's not just me out there. I have a greater cause to go forward with. So the biggest problem that I see with a lot of people is they're in fear. And what's the biggest fear? The fear of dying. And maybe, people may say that's not it, maybe it's, but it is. If you peel back the layers, like I said, they may not be in fear of dying for themselves, but they're in fear of dying for the people that they love because you leave them and now they're going to be in pain because you're gone. So if we can take away the brain in a lot of ways, when we can conceptualize through the heart, through emotional states that allow us to grow, and you can reframe fear from good to bad, because fear can push you. It can give you the ability to persevere through arduous tasks. Meaning that, like, with the fear that I had from the past incident, it allowed me to prepare accordingly. And the only way you're going to do something that's worth it, you have to go through a little bit of fear. You have to put it inside and you have to reframe it in a positive manner. Mike Tyson said that he was in fear for his life throughout the entire training camp. But as soon as he stepped through the ring, he became unstoppable because he knew he put in the effort and energy necessary to get the goal accomplished. He was untouchable at that time. So when you look at a task, look at the fear that you're having with that task. And what's the biggest fear, like we said, is fear of dying. So if you can conceptualize that and reframe it in a positive manner, now every day your purpose is to prepare. And you fall in love with the process as opposed to looking at the end result. So throughout the week, I didn't look at the finish line. I looked at each day, each mile, each hour that passed. As long as I got through it, I took the steps in the right direction to get to the goal. But a lot of times people get focused on the end result, which could be very demanding in a lot of ways. And so it stifles people. It stops them in their tracks. But if you go back to your order, your strength, you go back to your purpose, and you go back to understanding what are the things that God has given you to overcome the obstacles, you'll be better off for it.
Talk us through, you get back from that first run and, weeks, months past, whatever it is. At what point do you contact Marek with the goal of the new idea? And but what's that phone call like? What's that email like? And what's the start to that process?
Well, I mentioned it to my provider at Marek, Mike, and I said, I'm going to do it again, but I need your help. I need the help of the entire team. What are some of the things that you see is going to be beneficial for us to keep the ball rolling and to keep my body from breaking down? So we utilize peptides. We utilize BPC 157, TB 500, just for tissue repair, because I knew that that was going to be one of the defining factors. That was the major issue, was my feet breaking down and my muscle breaking down. So I needed to have proper IV treatment. I needed to have good hydration, electrolytes. I needed to have a better fueling strategy, and utilizing them helped me coordinate that strategy. It helped me identify what needs to be put in at what times so that I can keep the ball rolling, so that my body doesn't break down, where it triggers a sense of insecurity, where it triggers a sense of, you devalue your confidence. And I go, well, what do you think is the best option? And they said, well, do these protocols and continue going forward. Now, the great thing is that Marek, the entire team, helped. We had the founders come out. They walked with us. They rugged with us all the way through. So there was not only the fact that they gave me the tools, but they were there with me. They pushed alongside me. I think Mike did 15 miles, like somewhere around there, 20 miles, 22 miles. So when I saw them come out and support, it gave me an extra push, per se, It gave me motivation to keep moving. Because now I had not only myself, the people that I want to inspire, but I had my team fully engaged. And they were with me every step of the way. So it helped a lot.
What's the did you have an assessment coming off the back of that, the first one, or just throughout any of this process of your bloods and like going through it, and like where there were maybe weaknesses, or you said about your I can't even remember the word, creatinine, the
Creatine kinase levels.
I had the same blood test done after this.
CK
Like, was any of those markers brought up or anything like that you guys discussed? Like, oh, this is not looking good.
True. Right? Yeah, it's another thing. So we did lab testing beforehand, right, to see how my blood markers were. Everything was aligned and ready to go, so there wasn't any pre-existing issues starting. So now I have an understanding of where I'm at baseline, and that was the green light to go ahead. Now, if there was some issues there, then we would have probably pushed it further along. But with the lab testing, it allowed me to see deeper into my physiology and understand exactly what I had available. Now, throughout the days, we're looking at HRV readings. We're looking at stress levels overall. We're looking at sleep quality, soreness, and then obviously my feet breaking down. So again, I'm susceptible to these blisters. So I knew that was going to happen. So we had a nurse on staff, 2 nurses, and they tend to the feet, right? We did moleskin, we did KT tape, we wrapped them. I had lining socks. So everything from I would say what's the word I'm looking for? I guess from a procedural standpoint, everything was taken care of. But still, I knew that I was going to go through some pain, no matter what. With Merrick being there, it allowed me to not have that breakdown internally that allowed me to keep going. So as long as that happened, as long as I had that by my side, the confidence grew. Even though pain was there, I didn't fear. So then it allowed me to keep going because I reframed that pain into positivity. So you have to have these, you have to have that security. And they were a part of that security. Every day, throughout the week, I knew that I had them on my side, so it was perfect.
Just a quick message from today's sponsor. After putting my body through extreme physical and mental stress over the last few years, I realized something important. Most people don't have a health problem, they have a clarity problem. They know something feels off, but they don't have real data or real guidance. That's what Marek Health helped me with. This isn't generic healthcare. You don't get brushed off, you don't get handed vague advice, or have to wait months just to have a real conversation. You get comprehensive lab work, a dedicated health coach who actually checks in, and licensed medical providers who help you understand what's happening in your body and what your options are moving forward. Whether you're dealing with low energy, sleep issue, hormone imbalance, or you just want to perform at your very best, Marek gives you the tools and the team to make the progress. No guessing, no one-size-fits-all protocol. This is real health optimization service. And this isn't just for athletes. If you're someone who takes performance seriously, physically or mentally, this is about making informed decisions instead of hoping things sort themselves out. If you're serious about your health, the first step is simple. Get your blood work done. Head to the link in the description and use code Mulligan for an exclusive offer on your initial assessment. Stop guessing and start taking ownership of your health. Go to the link in the description for your exclusive discount and make sure you use code Mulligan. Thank you, Marek Health, and let's get back into the episode.
Let's talk about day one. So, was there any lows on day one? But what's the sort of general sort of vibe day one?
There was no lows on day one. There was a breaking of the skin in the feet, and I knew that okay, I got 4 or 5 more days to go. By the end of 20 miles, I grew in confidence. I was going to do 20 miles a day. The first day, I wanted to make sure that I set a good pace, but I didn't overshoot. So it was all about tapping back into the why, multiple whys. And I went live to conceptualize my own thoughts in verbal form to an audience, because I knew if I could get it out verbally, it would allow me to keep going. And I got a little emotional because I started thinking back to all the reasons and all the trials and tribulations and the process that it took to get here. But it wasn't sadness. It was joy, because I knew that I was here. I put myself in the position. We have a good plan, and I'm going to accomplish this task. So by the end of day one, it was just another part of the process that I had already implemented weeks before. So I said, okay, now we have another day to go. Now, the hard part about this whole thing is that once you finish, you got to start back over again, right? So you get 20 miles done. I go home, I'm resting. And then I go, all right, I got another 20 miles to go. And I broke it up into 3-hour time blocks. So I would do 10 miles every 3 hours. So in the beginning stages of the first day or the second day, I started to think about, I need to break this down more granular. I need to think about it as hour by hour, step by step, maintaining pace, fixing posture, making sure that the way I step doesn't cause any issues. So now I'm starting to think way more strategically, not just on getting the miles, but how I step, how I position my weight. how I improve my posture over a given amount of time. My breathing, checking my heart rate, checking my HRV, checking my strain range. That's when I become more of a tactician. And now I'm looking at it again by those minute details that allows me to compound the days. So by the end of day 2, okay, I got another day. Now, on Wednesday was probably the hardest day. And it was for lack of a better term, it was our scariest day. Because starting on Wednesday, stress started to accumulate. My feet started to break down tremendously. And I remember it was a little bit hotter that day too as well. So I started early, but not too early. I got out there on the road and I started to feel my feet break apart. So the skin started to tear. And I knew once that happened, it's going to slow me down. So then anxiety started to creep in again. Right there, first 2 or 3 miles started to creep in. And all of a sudden, I went into prayer. I said, Our Father. And by the end of my Our Father prayer, I started sprinting. And they turned to me and I heard my team go, oh no. But it wasn't out of ego. It was fighting back against my fear, fighting back against my own insecurity. So I needed to speed up in order for me to catch momentum. And I probably sprinted not too far, probably about a half a mile. And I go, okay, it's not too bad. I masked the pain through understanding. And so I started walking and I got to mile 5 and I started to see and feel the ripping happening in the bottom of my feet. So I go, all right, let's stop. Instead of keep going, causing more damage, let's tend to this issue. So we stopped, we tended to the issue, and I got back out there. And lo and behold, it didn't get worse, right? Because we had the tools necessary to stop the bleeding from happening, right? And I got connected with a friend who was in the military, he's a Marine, and he does ultra marathons himself. He met me at the we were going over I was going over a bridge at this time. And good energy, new energy is always good. It's always beneficial. So he met me at the bridge and he goes, hey man, how you doing? I'm like, I'm hurting, brother, but it's good. I feel good. He's like, yeah, suffering is what we go through. And it's like, you wouldn't be doing anything other than this at this point. And at that point, when he said that, I could have said, yeah, I get it. But I really identified what he was talking about at that particular time. He said, listen, this is going to happen. You knew this was going to happen. What's the problem? So then the fear went away and I started speeding up again. He started walking with me because the energy that he gave me allowed me to keep pushing. Then my daughter met me. And so, you don't want to look bad in front of your daughter. So she goes, are you okay? And I go, I'm fine. Don't tell your mom. So I get through it, and now I reached the 10-mile mark. We took about an hour. I ate some food, and I took an IV because I knew that I needed the hydration. Now it's nighttime, and I wanted to be by myself. This is where the pain and the accumulation of fatigue started to set in. And for the next 10 miles, I said, I want to be by myself. And then I started to realize this isn't as bad as you think it is. See, people have done bigger and more arduous tasks than this. And so I started to realize that I need to get out of my feelings. I need to get into my purpose. I need to get into why I'm here and why I'm doing it. Why did you make the decision to do this? You wanted this. You chose this. Stop feeling bad about yourself. Then I hit the 10 miles. My boy met me with a pizza and everything was solid. And again, at the end of the night, you go, all right, tend to your feet, get everything situated, be strategic, don't be in your feelings, don't be emotional. Next day, it's another day. Thursday. Now, Thursday, I met with my guys from Merrick. They were there, they had great energy. And so they didn't want to stop, they wanted to go. So I'm like, all right, I got to match that energy. So bringing in new energy helped me. It helped me evolve into pushing past that task of, okay, it's another day, it's another 20 miles. Let's just stay on par with that. Let's not think about 100. Let's not think about Friday. Today is this day. And again, went through it, fine. Thursday night, confidence started to grow. So I'm like, oh, I can do 20. I got it. But then again, I started thinking back to the year before when I let ego take charge. I said, hold on, humble yourself. Because anything can go wrong tomorrow. So I went into prayer. I said, God, give me the ability, but let me be humble enough to know my limitations. Friday hit, we had the whole team, right? We were ready to go because this was the send-off. This was it. And about mile 5 on Friday, I go, uh-oh, this is painful. My back's hurting now at this point, my traps, my shoulders, my feet are tore apart, and I'm just ready to finish. And so I had to really solidify my place or my position along this week-long trek across South Florida. And then I started falling back to the sacrifices that Jesus Christ made. And I started to recollect on the stories, on the crucifixion, on him carrying the cross. I said, he went through so much pain and agony and suffering for me to be able to do this right now. What are you doing? Stop being down on yourself. Follow in the path that Christ has given you. And when that happened, I got a jolt of energy. 10 miles got there. We recalibrated. We restructured everything. I said, I got 10 more miles to go. We're going to take this casual, but we're going to finish strong. 10 miles hit, and now everybody's with me. I have the whole team. I started calling people because I'm like, I'm about to do it. Call my friends, call some of the people that doubted me, right? Have my family with me. And I would say that it was satisfying. But at that point, it was more so, it was already understood that I was going to do it. So I didn't really have too much satisfaction at that point. I said, no, this is what it's supposed to be. So we get to like 2 miles down and everybody's walking with me. We got the people are following and we got everybody just joining in. And then I get to about half a mile down the road and I see my entire family there. I see Merrick, I see everyone there. And I'm like, am I gonna run to this thing? Like, am I gonna just like sprint through it? I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do it. Don't kill yourself the last half mile. But at that point, I just started praying to God and I started saying, thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for allowing me to inspire those. Thank you for allowing me to fine-tune the details and figure out the best cause of action. And again, I just got another jolt of energy. Past the 100-mile mark, and I almost collapsed, not because of fatigue, but just from joy. And I was exonerated because I felt the Holy Spirit just come upon me. And the reason why I say that is because it wouldn't have been done without him. It wouldn't have been done without the team. It wouldn't have been done without the failure. So all of that came in at one time and was overwhelming for a split second. Then I go, okay, I got 100 miles. Let me go sit down now. And like I said, people have done amazing things. This is not some astronomical, amazing feat. But for me, it was about failure and overcoming the failure by putting the proper plan in place. So I wanted the message to be clear. No matter what you go through in life, no matter all the trials and tribulations, no matter all the sacrifices that you have to give up, because that's what's going to happen. You have to solve those problems. You're going to not win all the time, and that's okay. That's what you want to feel because it allows you to grow. I'd rather fail and learn than win and learn nothing. And that's what we did.
I think it's deeply powerful. You do all of that, and I think in this situation, ultramarathons, these kind of endurance events, we could be guilty of being ego-led. I am powerful, I'm strong, I'm this, I'm that. We to get to the end of it and have that realization that it's all the people around me. It was God, it was my team, it was Marek. Like, that's so rewarding. I think it's such a huge shift for to go through spiritually of like, okay, it's almost like an ego death. It's almost like an ego death. Like,
Yep. It is. No, it 100%. It is.
so no, I get it. Let's talk some specific moments, just little beats, because I think there's a few things that I feel I connected on there that maybe we could try and explain to the viewer. Slipping your shoes on in the morning and those first miles.
That's a good one.
Yeah, let's talk about the
man.
final day. Try and put those shoes back on and go. Those first few miles.
That's a really good one. Yeah. You got me back into the pain cave here. Yeah. Even putting on my socks, taking my socks off, taking the strips of moleskin off my feet and tearing off skin off my feet, and having to do it all over again. I knew that from past experiences, right? And going through this once before, that the initial start was always the hardest, right? It's friction. You have to overcome inertia. So you go from a static to a dynamic. And in the weight room, when you're lifting weights, the hardest part is the start, right? But you can gain the momentum over time once you start pushing the limits, start pushing each movement. So when I put my shoes on, I go, oh, it's terrible, right? I just need to start moving. So once I start moving, it becomes numb and you gain the momentum. And now it's there, but you don't really feel it anymore. It becomes second nature. It becomes a part of you. The pain is a part of you. And every step, as it goes forward and I'm organizing my feet in the right direction, I go, okay, I can keep moving now. Try not to stop. And I think that's a testament to life, right? The hardest thing that you're ever going to do is start. Once you can gain the momentum and identify how you're going to strategically approach that momentum, you can keep pushing forward. You can keep moving past uncomfortable situations. But you got to start. And people let fear stop them from starting. Because again, they don't want to go through pain. They don't want to go through uncomfortable situations. They want to feel satisfied. Suffering, and I know this is the word, it's something that is rooted in Christ because he gave us the first suffer. He suffered first. So every time I put my shoes on, I was like, man, I'm not getting nailed to a cross. What am I doing? This is just my shoes. It's just blisters. Just keep going, man. And it's not an ego thing. It's true humility based on conceptualizing what others have done in the past for me to do what I do and be free to do what I do. So I start thinking about our veterans. They gave up their own life to let us do this. So then I go deeper into the why. It's not about me. It cannot be about me because if it was about me, I would stop. Because I'm thinking about circumstances. I'm thinking about situations afterwards. I'm thinking about my pain. I'm thinking about my feelings, my emotions. I can't. And I go back to love. To will the good of others. Okay, how is this going to benefit others? Is it going to change their perspective on how to overcome obstacles? Is it going to change their understanding of failure? I got to keep going. Because if I stop now, then I failed twice and I didn't learn. So the true testament to intelligence is learning and learning fast. But you can't do that without gathering skills through repetition. So then I recollect on all the times that I prepared. So was that a waste of time preparing because I didn't learn? Was the failure a loss entirely because I didn't learn from that process? So all these things come into play when I start to feel the pain. And then I reframe. I reframe the fear. And then I have to understand, is that pain going to be something that is going to be detrimental to myself and others? And if it's not, keep on trucking.
We were just speaking before about some of the obstacles that came up, and one of them was the weather. Like that you had to change the route at one point. What day was that, and what was that?
That was Monday. Monday, the first day. So the first day, it was torrential downpour. It was probably within the first half day. So from like 7 o'clock to 1 p.m., there was going to be a storm. So I had to redirect where we were going, right? Our location. And that was another thing that I learned from. Like the old me would have said, all right, we're gonna ruck in the rain, right? But I knew that it's the first day. If I put myself in a bad position now, I got a long 4 or 5 days to go. So we made a strategic pivot towards going away from the actual storm and walking around it. Because of the fact that I didn't have an actual A to B distance, I knew that all I needed to do was just get 20 miles. I could have walked around the block for 20 miles. I just wanted to get the 20 miles. So as long as we had a set parameter, you can just follow that path and just keep on going until you get to those required miles for that day. And that helped a lot. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't learn from the process behind.
I mean, that would have been a big mistake day one if you was like covered in, especially rocking as well, the weight on wet skin. Like you would have had cuts all over your body as well.
I'll tell you this, and I could have let ego drive me to the rain. I could have let pride tell me, you can do it, all right? Because I'm overconfident through past experiences, through my own ability, through my own mindset. Don't do that. And the great thing about my team was that they were all on board because they wanted me to be in the best health possible. So there wasn't any pushback. We just redirect. We go away from the problem, right? We solve the problem by going away from the issue. Let's put it like that. So every day was a problem solving event, multiple times over. That was the first problem we had to solve. And if you look at it, we solve a lot of problems every day, right? We solve a problem with traffic, right? We solve a problem with this getting flooded, right? The problems that you solve make you more intelligent, make you more equipped to handle the strong issues that may come about on a daily basis. And every day you should be willing to solve the problem. The problem there is that people don't want to solve problems sometimes. They want to go away from it because a problem-solving event is arduous. It creates suffering. It creates uncomfortability. So utilizing a problem-solving strategy allowed us to keep moving forward without any concerns. And like I said, I could have said, all right, we're just going to go through this. But I knew for a fact that if we did that, we would have fell back to the same position I was in last year.
You said at the end you called some people who maybe doubted you or anything. Like, what was the sort of overriding doubt, or did anything stand out?
You know what? That helped me push through the process. And I love my wife, but she doubted me. And fair enough, because she's looking out for my own well-being. And it was funny. And this is a funny thing, because I love Rocky, right? I watched the moment in Rocky 4 when he was going to fight Ivan Drago. And Adrian said, "You can't win." And that kind of replayed in my mind, because she said, "You can't do it." I love my wife, don't get me wrong. Maria, don't kill me. But those weeks prior to that, I was like, "Oh, I'm good, I'm confident." I started thinking with the ego. She put me back in my place. So when she said you can't do it, I said, "All right, I got to be more strategic. I got to plan accordingly. I got to be more intelligent on my approach. Now I'm going to train. I'm going to train hard." And it pushed me to be more strategic. It allowed me to identify what went wrong even deeper. And it helped. Now, there were some other people that, "Why would you do this? Doesn't make any sense." And a lot of people misinterpreted my approach to it. They were thinking that it was all ego driven, that was just for clout or for, just to say I did it. But I had to reframe that, because at the end of the day, like I said, it wasn't for that. Because I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't put myself in a position to cause significant damage to my body, to my nervous system, and to cause harm or pain to the ones that I love. And so that had to drive me through the preparation. And those people that doubted, those people that said, "Why are you doing this?" Hopefully they can understand now. And they know that anything is possible as long as you have a strategy, as long as you have a plan of action, you have the will that God has given you to go forward. Like I said, we're all rational beings. As human beings, we're rational. We have an intellect where we can think, we can choose, we can decide. We're not reactive where we shouldn't be. Don't let emotion dictate the outcome. So conscientiousness, being able to go through arduous tasks through fortitude, but also living in justice, doing the will of God, and providing for others while we do this. Hence the reason why we wanted to raise money for our military veterans. Again, it wasn't just about the 100 miles. We did want to raise some money. We did want to help those individuals. Along with that, you have to be prudent in the fact of you're not inhuman. You still can break down. You still can go through some level of destruction. So when I tie in the virtues and I orientate them towards the goal, and then I systematize the process, it allows us to get anything accomplished. But don't just think from this 100-mile ruck. Think about this throughout your life. So if this message stands clear, go through the values that you have, set the virtues in line, and be strategic and be focused on the given task, one step at a time. Like I said, the problem that we have with a lot of people is that they want the end result to come fast. Everybody wants instant gratification.
Yeah, I mean, just the last little bit is just, you said that there's probably specific moments you can recollect when you was going through it where you're in your head. By yourself would probably be one of them, when you decide to get 10 miles by yourself. What's the inner monologue? Like, how are you talking to yourself? What's the inner monologue when you're going through that, or you're by yourself? Yeah. Especially in sort of the slightly harder, tougher moments, I guess.
Again, I'll go back to my faith, right? The inner monologue was basically, God has given you the abilities. He's given you the talents. Don't waste the talent. Put yourself in a position to understand that Christ has given us so much sacrifice in order for us to evolve and grow and be the person that we want to be and help others in this process. And I think the biggest thing was just falling back to that and getting away from the ego again. every time I felt discomfort, I pushed away from thinking about the end result, thinking about laying in bed, thinking about tending to my feet, thinking about comfort. And I marinated in the pain, right? Because when you go in the storm, it's the fastest way to get out of it, as opposed to trying to run away from it, right? And what I mean by that is, if it's unavoidable, you have to go through it. The pain of the feet is unavoidable, right? Because it's going to be there, right? The pain in your back is going to be there. Now, you can orientate your body, you can make the proper steps, but the pain is there, no matter what. And I told my team, I said, we can do all the things necessary to allow me to cross the finish line, right? But just know that no matter what, it's still going to be painful, so that when it comes, I'm prepared for it. So when I started feeling the pain, when I started being by myself, like again, I say, I asked for this. I made the decision. I'm a rational being. I was able to choose what to do. And so whatever happens from there, it's on me. And when you can take full accountability in your actions, you become free. You become more aligned with what you feel is appropriate for the time and what God has put you here to do. So purpose, a lot of people think like purpose is like doing what they're passionate about. And, maybe even if you're really deep, you would say, okay, it's to help people. But your true purpose is to know and love God. And so with that, I want to make sure that I'm aligned with what that means. And to know and love God, again, God put us here for a reason. A lot of people don't know why, and that's a mystery in a lot of ways. But if you can go into prayer, if you can go into meditation, and you can really connect with the Creator, with the first cause, everything you do is for that. And you live in accordance to that. So when I'm talking to myself, it's more about, why am I doing it? Why did you make the decision? Who gave you the decision? And then from there, it's just stop feeling sorry for yourself, man. This is what you plan to do. That was the biggest thing, because I started to go, this hurts. This is uncomfortable. Why did I decide to do this? I could probably stop. I probably don't have to do 20 miles. I could probably jump in the car and say that we did it. All that stuff comes in. You go, what am I talking about? This isn't why I decided to do this. Because I know in my mind, or in my being, in my soul, if I don't accomplish it, it was because of my inability to solve the problem. So again, just keep on pushing.
Energy for the next day.
Those moments for me where I was by myself were some of the best. Like when I say by myself, even just I mean more so by myself and my thoughts. Like for hours, like you say, for hours and hours and days and days. Where were your thoughts going when you was in those moments where you were by yourself? Like just all the thoughts to yourself you could think about. You had that pain still there as well.
Well, I started thinking about obviously the people that doubted, and I started thinking about the pain that I went through last time. And I started thinking about the failure that I went through last time. And then I started pushing past that insecurity, but then again, I started to I wanted to make sure that I didn't fall back into ego, because that would negatively affect the output. So it was a fine line between like, prove them wrong, but also live in accordance with God and make sure that your virtues stay aligned. And as you get, like, it's a dichotomy, like you're going back and forth. And as that goes back and forth, you're steady moving. So it's like, I got negative and positive emotions going and flipping back and forth and back and forth. But it never stopped the forward momentum. And it organized, or I would say it allowed me to not think about pain. It allowed me not to think about even the boredom, because I'm going back and forth with these thoughts. And it's like ping pong, it's like boom, boom, boom. But then you look up and you snap out of it, and now you're at 10 miles. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go again. So it occupies your state of thinking, And I think you get too deep into the thought of the actual process of you walking and moving and everything, then you're going to think about the pain. You're going to think about the agony. So I just started to put my mind somewhere else. And even though it was like negative and positive emotions, it allowed me to be occupied, Because there was times where I left these guys, and I was just like, man, because I'm not gonna be fun to be around. Because I'm going back, I'm ping-ponging back and forth, like I said, from emotion, positive emotion, negative emotion. But like I said, that was the best time, because whenever whenever you're sitting in solitude, or you're in a place where you're by yourself, you truly get to identify who you are. It's your foundational identity at that point. So you gain introspection. And it goes with everything, every aspect of training, every aspect of an uncomfortable situation, whether you're studying, whether you're in prayer, whatever. I think a lot of people, I think Blaise Pascal said, all humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly alone in a room. And I think that's true.
I mean, since doing, for me, obviously, mine was attached very much to grief, like my grief still. Like I thought I'd processed my grief over the last 10 years, but the run was very much attached to it. By the time I got to the end of it, like I knew that I'd had such a monumental shift that I was like, I need to bottle this up. Like, how can I talk to people about doing some kind of pilgrimage? And I think a lot of it stemmed from having to be by myself with my own thoughts for hours and hours a day, and in some kind of slight pain that was numbing the outside noise as well. Like it was, I wasn't bothered about what was going on social media or back at the house or whatever. Like all those kind of dramas and stuff went away because I was in pain. Yeah. So like I'm in my head, I'm sat with my thoughts, and that was probably one of the most difficult processes, but the most rewarding processes to go through as well, because your mind will take you some crazy places. Like I could imagine. Yeah. This beat on here that I thought was really interesting, and I'll end it here, but I might be putting you on the spot, so tell me if I am. You said a few prayers while she was doing it. I'd love to hear you, like if you know the Our Father by heart, or whatever prayer you went through. Would you be able to just say the prayer as you would have said it?
No. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank you so much. That would be beautiful.